and talking at the same time. But at any rate, welcome all, and we have Ryan Tarrant here from Dave Camp's office. I believe the main objective today is to share some concerns, thoughts, and ideas, so Dave can take that back to FERC. And I really, truly don't know what some of those are, but I'll try to document as many as I can, as well as you maybe,
yes,
as we go along. Did you have anything to add or say?
No, I mean, we're happy to help with FERC any way we can. You know, as these questions come up and as we go forward and people have questions, we'd like to be able to help with those, you know, and that's what we're here for. You know, I know John and Joel, if there's state issues with DNR or DEQ with the dam, they're ready to help with that, I would imagine. So,
yep. What you have right there is a copy of the letter that Tobacco Township sent to FERC back in January.
okay.
I've talked to one of the deputy directors since then, and I still don't have a written response. The answer she gave me was exactly what I wanted.
But you want it in writing.
But verbal means nothing.
Ever. Yep. We'll check on it for you and find out where it is in the process and why we don't have a written response yet.
I emailed a copy to Heather Campbell, the director, deputy director in that office that's listed on the letter.
Okay.
Bill?
You know, I don't know if Congressman Camp's office understands what's going on. We've sent a lot of stuff there, but I don't know if you guys read it. But this is basically what's happening. Voice Hydro claims that they're financially unable to make these first mandated upgrades to the dam. And they're saying that they don't get money from the public, they're going to surrender their license and walk away. And that's nothing but a hollow threat, because Voice has a sizable investment in that dam. They owe money on that. If they turned around and walked away and couldn't make their bank payments, they'd be bankrupt. Now, if it's true that they don't have the financial wherewithal to do this, and nobody knows it's true, because the only information we have comes from Voice Hydro, then they have three courses of action. Number one is just declare bankruptcy. The judge will take over the dam and sell the assets, Edenville Dam being the biggest asset. Number two would be to try to get a private company to buy it from them. And number three is just provide public assistance to Voice. Now, 1 and 2 would be beneficial to the lakefront property owners. We'd probably get a more efficient, better managed, and better capitalized company to run that dam. And even if the property owners had to buy it out of the bankruptcy court, the city of Beaverton runs the dam in Beaverton. The county owns the dam that makes Wiggins Lake. The property owners at Sugar Springs own the dams that make Lake Lancer and Lake Lancelot. The city of St. Louis runs the dam that makes the lake in the city of St. Louis. I mean, if the public has to put money into that, we'd be a lot better off if we did it without Voice Hydro. And now number three, there's been, you know, they're talking of establishing a special assessment district for providing public funds to Voice. And I call it a SAD. The SAD is probably not even legal. I've talked to an attorney in Midland. He says you can't issue a tag, collect money, and hand it over to a private company. Those special assessment districts are created to finance improvements and maintenance of public property, not private property. Now, even if you assume that this was legal, the public would have to be given a lot of control over Voice Hydro. For one thing, it's an LLC, you know, which is just a partnership. The profits flow back to the individual members. That company would have to become a C corporation. There'd have to be an independent accounting firm going in there and going through all their books, including the books of the trust that sponsored this thing. The public would have to have control of all the expenditures and management decisions, the staffing level, the salaries, benefits, the contracts and all that stuff. We probably would have to have stock in Wixom. And if the numbers that they're bandying about how much this improvement is going to cost, we'd be the majority stockholder. And I don't think that's the kind of arrangement that Boise Hydro is going to want. But at this point, all the power lies with the public. And the only thing that can change that is if Boise is allowed to do what they pulled in Sanford. Lower that lake down, do some damage to that spillway and that so that it can't be raised back up, and then say we don't have any money. And now you've got the management by crisis, everybody flying around trying to get something done. That lake could end up being down for years. And, you know, that's the exact same thing that they did at Sanford. And the government, local, state, and federal, never did anything. And if all these layers of government do the same thing over again, that to me is just inexcusable. And what has to happen is we need some law or regulation, a court injunction, some mechanism that says they cannot pull that lake down until they provide ironclad proof that they've got the wherewithal to make these repairs. And it would seem to me that that wouldn't be that hard to do. And every time we have one of these public meetings, somebody stands up and, well, we'll answer your questions. I don't have any questions anymore. I mean, I think this is glaringly obvious what's happening. We're being made the victims of extortion, and the county, state, and federal, somebody ought to be able to do something about it. I mean, there was supposed to be a meeting with Mueller when he came back from Nevada. And I would think that somebody from the government could sit him down and ask him and say, are you going to pull that lake down if you don't have the money? And you'd know. But that came and went. You know, then I got a letter from Josh saying that Dave Camp's office was going to take the lead. And so far, all the lead amounted to was you making that phone call to me and trying to intimidate me. You know, you were the one that sat there and said, well, they'll surrender their license and the FERC will drag the dam out there. That isn't what we want to hear, Ryan.
No, what I was telling you.
That is exactly what
Bill,
you told me.
Bill, we went to FERC when we went through this issue in Sanford. And we went to FERC with a series of questions. And one of those questions was, what happens if you are not in compliance? And what we had discussed, one of the answers that FERC gave us back was, if they're not in compliance, they are able to do that. It doesn't happen very often. And what I was saying was, let's have all the answers so that you have everything in front of you in order to make the best decision possible. So we're here to help. I haven't heard, I mean, we're getting questions.
All right, give it to me. What's the answer? What answers did you find out?
What questions do you have? I mean, we're here.
I'm telling you, we need some way that says they cannot pull that lake down until they provide proof that they have the financial assistance. That is not hard to understand.
Bill, let me give two questions.
Okay.
That I have raised with
And
FERC.
I'm sorry, just
Yes.
before we start, I mean, we're talking about the delay and an injunction, and I think there's a series of questions there that we can go to FERC and find out. You know, what happens if there's an injunction? Because sometimes that can make it harder for us to deal with FERC. In my experience, when we've had something that's in court, whether it's federal court, state court, what the federal agency will tell us is, okay, now this is a court matter, it's with our counsel, and it needs to be worked out with the counsel on the other side because it's a court matter. So that takes it out of the legislative branch.
Well, what they've done, I've seen a couple of letters where the Stevenall wrote. FERC sends her a nice letter back, showing their normal policy. We can get that from reading the book. What we're concerned with is what are they gonna do in a particular case?
Allow me
Yeah.
to give you two specific questions.
Yes.
Number one, would you contact FERC DC? They call it the DHAC group, and that would be the woman that received the letter from Bill. That's
Heather
Department of Hydrology Administrative Compliance, DHAC. Question is, does FERC have the authority to require a performance bond demonstrating that the licensee has the financial ability to complete projects prior to FERC issuing approval for these proposed projects?
Let me make a comment about that.
Let me give you the second question first.
Well, let me answer that one first, at least what they've been told. Campbell told me they do not require a bond, but that the local government can if their state law allows it.
So that's the question we would like to have answered in writing through their legal group. There is another division in DC. It's the Dam Safety Division. And the person you want to talk to there is the Deputy Director, whose name is Dave Kapka, C-A-P-K-A.
One more time, please.
David Kapka, C-A-P-K-A. He's the Deputy Director of FERC Dam Safety Engineering in DC. He should be posed with the same question because they're different divisions, and I'd like to have an answer whether their division is able to require that the licensee post a bond prior to initiation of major repairs. This is being discussed, roughly speaking, as a $5 to $8 million repair bill for the project. The project is not viewed as an emergency repair. It is viewed as a dam safety repair. There's a different category. Now, there does appear to be a difference in the information. FERC Federal is divided into regional offices. Voice Hydro is being overseen by the Chicago Regional Office, and an engineer at that office is in charge of this licensee. The information that I've gotten from DC does not seem to be in alignment with information that supposedly originates in Chicago. So there may be differences in interpretation, or the understanding of the information as it's being delivered to the licensee may have been confused. So those are the two questions that directly address one of Bill's concerns. There is a track record, or at least the public perceives a track record, exactly as has been described, in that Voice initiates projects, and those projects do not come to completion for a variety of reasons. The most significant was this financial, lack of finance on the emergency repair that was done in San Diego. That was a $300,000 job. And Voice claimed to run out of money to complete a $300,000 job. The public hears $5 million and thinks, well, if you can't afford $300,000, where's the $5 million? Exactly. That's one of the big concerns here.
And I think another piece of this is the fund, for the funding is, is there anything at either the federal or the state levels, that helps with that funding?
Bill's point that this could turn into a crisis management situation is, in my view, exactly correct. Because what could happen, for instance, this project is described as requiring an 8-foot drawdown to the lake, and there will be a coffer dam put in place to hold the water back at the 8-foot drawdown level. The coffer dam does not appear to extend to the normal height of the lake level. So you couldn't bring the lake back up under the current plan that Boyce is proposing to more than 6 feet below its normal level with the coffer dam. So if Boyce runs out of funding partway into this project, after the spillway has been removed or made ineffective, now the lake is 6 or 8 feet below level, and Boyce is looking for funding. This is a major concern to a lot of people on the lake. And the existing track record would suggest that it's not so far-fetched to think it could happen again.
Right. Okay.
Right now, we're going around in circles. Boyce says they respond only to FERC. We don't have any authority within the project boundaries. Campbell says that's not true. They require all local permits unless we do something excessive, and then they can make an exception in that case. But generally require. Even Boyce acknowledges they need a DEQ permit to start. But if we get this in writing so that we say, okay, Gladwin Township has authority there. Now we have a performance guarantee in our zoning ordinance. Maybe we can use that, require them to make them post a bond. All kinds of things we can consider if we know we have the authority. Without that knowledge, we're just spinning our wheels. Because Boyce won't listen as long as they believe, or can make everybody believe, that we have no authority. So we'll end up with, the only option will be to have a judge tell them.
Right.
I should have went to shorthand class.
One of the other statements that Mueller's made also, and I'm trying to find where it was in writing, which documents I've seen. That $8 million is likely, by Mueller's words, not sufficient. These were all with best case scenarios, with the design that's going in being done with the actual design. And like everybody knows, you start construction on a house or anything, you pull the water down, you're going to find problems that we don't recognize. Things are going to change, plus some of the estimates are a little bit on the older side. It doesn't incur for cost increases over the period of construction. There's significant downfalls in this estimate, although $8 million should be enough to get us very concerned.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I've done work on my house, and it always seems to take 3 times as long and cost twice as much as I thought it would. Maybe I'm just not handy, but.
Well, you know, FERC also says they don't care about the financing. We're telling you what you gotta do.
Right.
I've seen a letter in writing where they say that, you know. Now, Boyce has told us, and the supervisor in a meeting, that he's not gonna sign any contracts until the finances are in place, which is a prudent thing. But is he gonna ignore FERC? And if he does, what's FERC gonna do? So, we need to know where everybody, all the agencies stand, so that we can take whatever appropriate action we think they're.
Exactly.
But the standard FERC reply means nothing. the director of FERC is gonna write a nice letter talking about their policy. We already know the policy.
I'll tell you what, if I was a US congressman and somebody was pulling this kind of crap on my constituent, I could put a stop to it. And I would expect that Dave Camp should be able to do it. You know, nobody can tell me that, that the federal government is gonna sit there and allow that to happen. You know,
Well, even as a member of Congress, you still have to work within what the law is, and there's laws that are out there and legislation that was passed years ago, you know, putting FERC in place.
they seem to be able to tell you everything to do about running your business, who you can hire, who you can fire, and your insurance policy and everything else goes right on. Now, I'm telling you,
And I think,
we expect to see some action, not just a bunch of talk, you know.
Ryan,
yes,
I want to talk a little bit about the topic of surrender of the license, because that's been brought up by Voice Hydro as an option here. And if I understand, Camp's office may have looked into that surrender question. But I don't know that it's been explored enough. I don't understand enough about what's been explored there to understand what that option looks like. So if there's a question here on my part, can we get some more direct communication with people at FERC and DC to talk about some of the options for that process? That process is not cookbook, it's not carved in stone. There are several ways it can turn out. It would be good to talk in a little more depth about some of the options in that process, because that is, according to Lee Mueller, one of the outcomes we face, possible outcomes we face here. And I think we need to understand it better.
yeah, I think we can do that.
Yeah, I'd like to be involved in that discussion. Don, I think, would like to be involved in that discussion.
Yeah, and I've got cards here, so let's make sure after
Okay.
we're wrapped up, we exchange information, and we'd be happy to look into that. Yes, sir.
Ryan, I think to clarify too, that if my understanding is correct, if this becomes a non-electric generating dam, then it's no longer under FERC, but under DEQ, which DEQ would be fine with it the way it is, if it's not which then, you know, I don't know what expenses would be incurred in order to get Voice Hydro out of this, but if you stopped generating electricity, I'm wondering if, sounds like to me, if we go under state rule on this, that this project doesn't have to take place.
I can speak to that a little bit. I had a conversation with the Northern Regional Michigan Dam Safety Supervisor out of Gaylord. And indeed, if a dam in Michigan is used as a water control structure and not for hydro, it is regulated under the Michigan Dam Safety Act. One of the things that came up in that conversation was specific to the Eatonville Dam. If that were a water control structure not producing hydro and no FERC license, the current safety guideline would be 50% of the FERC PMF. So that dam would need to be capable of spilling 32,000 cubic feet per second.
Is it capable of that now?
It's close. There is some debate. It looks like it's somewhere between 29,000 and 32, depending upon whose number you accept. So the fellow mentioned that bringing the spill capacity into state compliance would be a much less expensive project if it needed it at all.
The other thing, all these estimates are based on Lee Mueller's personal designs and his group. Now, we're not contesting that those designs are not sufficient or poor designs, but there's never been another engineering firm asked, how much could you do this job for?
Well, I beg to differ with you there. Mr. Clark and Mr. Easton and I had a meeting on Larry Grove Billings Township supervisor. And our township is one of the ones that's going to take take care of most of it, because our lake is the lake that's involved mainly. And I've seen the drawings were drawn and engineered by Gerace Construction out of Midland. And I've seen the estimates for both sides from Gerace Construction. It's $4 million for each side, give or take a few $100,000. And the thing is, and Lee Mueller said that he doesn't have the money. He was very upfront with us. He said he doesn't have the money, and he will put in the piling this fall for the roadway to work on the spillway. He also said that in the spring, if he does not have the money for the contract, he will not sign it, he will not start it, he will not draw down the lake. Now, that's just his words. I mean, you know, you can't only trust his words. That's all you can do. And if he doesn't draw down the lake, that means he's not in compliance with FERC. That means that he'll lose his generating electricity license, which means it goes back to FERC as far as what he's been told. And then it goes to state, to DEQ, and DEQ's whole idea is back to nature, do away with the dam. That's DEQ's standhold right now. Now, he's also said that the dam, as far as it is right now, is nothing wrong with it. There's no emergency repairs, there's nothing needs to be done, it's up and running, it's operating. And he has said at one time, because this is all to do with the 10,000-year flood, okay? He said at one of the meetings we had that at this time in the worst storm there is, he could open them gates on both sides and draw the lake down in the worst storm there was, as it stands now. This is just some new thing that FERC has come up with, that we want to put bigger floodgates in it. Well, hey, if we drop this lake in 3 hours to nothing, there will not be a Midland, and there most likely will not be a dam at Sanford. So why do we need these floodgates to drop this water so fast, so quick, in this 10,000-year flood? Midland will be gone. There will be no Midland, and no dam in between here. So this is one of FERC's designs. Now, why? I think that's one of the things we got to get to, is why is FERC insisting on this?
10,000 years.
You know, it'd be different if we were having trouble, or if there was a problem with the dam and something had to be done anyway, then upgrade. But just to tear it out, just to spend some money, and not have the government step forward and say, well, we're going to make you do this, and not put any money out there to help it, I think is wrong. And I think it's wrong for our citizens that bought on this lake, to have a lake, to now have to pay for, to keep the lake, to a company that may use it for that, may not use it for that. We will have no say on it. He's already said that if it does come to assessment, that he will not surrender any of his dam rights. I mean, he's not going to give us a share of it, or...
Well, then, Larry, he's not gonna get the money.
Well, this is true, and that's where it comes back. That's right, and that's where it comes back to, is what he says. He said that if he doesn't have the money, he won't draw it down, but he'll be out of compliance with FERC. FERC's gonna take his license, the dam's gonna go to FERC, and then wherever it goes back to the state, or wherever it goes. But if it goes to DEQ, DEQ's top-notch thing is, let's get back to nature and do away with the dam.
Let me give you two other opinions that I received from the Michigan DNR and the Michigan DEQ, because I asked specifically about if the licensee were to surrender a license, would they be required to remove the dam? And I was told that the license surrender is a lengthy process. It involves FERC, it involves the licensee, it involves the state and local agencies, both DNR, DEQ, and local government, to come together with an exit plan. One of the things which is considered in this exit plan is the economic impact of that body of water in the surrounding area. And I mentioned that Wixom Lake was highly developed for residential use, And the comment was, well, that produces a large amount of economic value. This would be factored into any decision or any exit plan that would have to be finalized before the FERC would accept a license surrender. Lee just can't put his license in an envelope, send it to FERC and walk away. He's bound, as part of obtaining the license, to follow through a surrender process that would take periods of public comment, periods of environmental and economic study. This would take quite a while. It took several years to decide what to do with the dams in Traverse City when the Traverse City Power and Light decided they wanted to surrender the license.
By several years, we're talking like a decade.
I don't know that answer.
Same thing with Wiggins.
Because that Traverse City dam issue was there in 2002 after redistricting, and they've just taken them out, I think, in the last 12 or 18 months.
And I was told that there was a lengthy study because there was discussion about removing the dams. I was told also that that area was not nearly as developed residentially as...
It's not,
yeah.
Hardly at all.
Yeah. I asked, what is the minimum decommissioning that would have to occur if that license were surrendered? And the minimum that would have to happen is the connections to the power grid would be removed and the turbine would have to be removed from the tunnel. I asked whether or not the powerhouse would be required to be demolished. And I was told no. I asked whether the dam would have to be breached or the lake drained. And I was told no, not necessarily. So whatever happens to the lake would be part of a large public discussion that would occur during a surrender process.
One thing wrong with that. You're talking about Lee surrendering his license. He's not willing to surrender his license. He doesn't want to quit making electricity. But if he doesn't do this, FERC is going to say, you're going to surrender your license. See, there's a whole different situation there. And when our government says, and the first thing you're talking to DEQ, don't trust anything they're going to tell you unless you got it in writing.
Don't trust Lee Mueller's statement.
That's right. That's correct
that's
too.
That's why I'm telling you this. These are verbal communications, and the spillway upgrades to achieve FERC's PMF are viewed as, and I don't have their exact term, but it's ongoing dam maintenance. It is not viewed as an emergency maintenance activity. There are different guidelines. The thing that happened in Sanford so quickly was an emergency repair.
That's correct.
And they are much more tuned in getting that done, and there are less regulations. So, in my opinion, the statement that the lake will be drained is not something that is likely to happen. The probability of that happening with the residential development that exists along the lake, I've been told, is extremely low. This is not going to be the first response. FERC is not going to say, I'm told, FERC is not going to say, you have to drain that lake. You have to breach the dam. They will not say that as the first response to a license surrender.
And I'll bet there's a bank somewhere that's got a lot to say about this too. If Mueller borrowed the money.
He owes money on the dam.
Yeah, and you can bet that dam is the collateral backing it up. These bankers aren't gonna go for him just walking away.
He doesn't want to walk away. That's just it. People are talking about him just giving up and walking away, surrendering his license.
You don't even know if he's applied to get it. You don't know that, as he showed you where he made the application.
He told us in this meeting that he would be forthcoming and show us all his financial records when the time comes. He didn't want them put on the internet, but he would show the main people or the committee that's working this, he would show us his financial records.
He told us the same thing, but he neglected to show the judge involved in the tax disputes his personal finances.
Well,
So if he's gonna show them to us and he won't show them to a judge, I have problems with that.
that's a different case altogether. So
It isn't. It's Lee Mueller telling you what you best know or what he wants you to hear.
That's what I said. I don't trust anything he says. But I also don't trust anything that FERC says. Because we've just come through a whole lengthy thing with FEMA. And let me tell you something. If FEMA can come out into our lake, which is, the flooding is controlled by a dam, and say a person that's 10 foot above that lake is in the flood zone, what the hell is FERC gonna do?
Well, I understand that, but if you worked with FEMA and if you looked into FEMA, I don't know how much research you've done, but FEMA put those,
We've done
they only mapped the
$125,000.
first section, I know, we did too. They only mapped the main section of the lake. They didn't map the back sections. And the land that they put in flood zones, much of it is much higher than the land that they did not map. And when I asked them, well, how, okay, so I'm on a pretty high section of property here, what's my insurance gonna cost? He gave me a fine number in it. I said, now what's this guy down the lake? Oh, we didn't map that, so we can't really charge him much. We're gonna give him a real, he's 3 feet above the water, I'm 12 feet above the
Okay,
water.
unfortunately, FEMA and FERC are different divisions of the
can't-
government, and we
yeah.
probably don't want to get down that road.
Right, but we're talking about government.
I agree.
So,
No
the-
logic involved.
Well, the takeaway message that I got when I explored with FERC in DC and with the DEQ in Gaylord and in Bay City and in Mayo was people should not feel that there is an imminent threat of the lake being drained. That's absolute, that's not the case.
But don't take it off the table.
Can I add to that question though, is if Bill Mueller says that he's going to start repair, your concern is he would start but not be able to finish.
Correct.
Correct.
And he would draw down the lake and kind of leave it, and if you ran out of funding, you'd be kind of waiting.
Stuck.
That would not be a FERC decision, that would be his decision. Is that your concern?
Yes,
Well,
yeah, and I mean,
that's
you
a big
can
one.
talk about all this stuff, but the thing that'll prevent having this crisis situation is some kind of regulation that says, you're not drawing that down until you show us the money.
That's
And, you know, as far as having questions, that's what the congressman needs to do. That's what we need done.
Yes, the exact concern is that during the expansion of the spillways, the existing spillways would have to be demolished, or gradual, one at a time, but during that construction phase, they would be incapable of being plugged off and raising the lake back up. So once you knock out the spillway, you're stuck at a low level until the spillway repair is completed. And if the licensee runs out of money right in the midst of that project, now you're stuck with the lake down for
Well,
who knows how
And
long.
you may be stuck with something worse. With the spillways partially demolished and the coffer dam in place, the ability of the spillways to spill water in a 200-year flood is lost. And if water overtops those coffer dams and starts running through the spillways, you have a chance of losing the dam in a flood that it could currently handle.
This is true. That's why he's doing one side of it at a time, and they're coming down 8 feet. The 8 feet is gonna give him some buffer, but we can still spill water on whatever side he's not gonna do first. That's his logic behind the whole thing.
So if the project comes to a halt in the middle with these temporary coffer dams in place, and that construction project dies or remains suspended through the next winter and spring flooding season like we've got right now, this potentially is going to turn into an emergency situation and could, you know, with a lot of water, conceivably wash out the dam. That's what has to be.
Now, and I know there's a lot of communication out there that I've read because it's not an emergency situation, has FERC given Boyce a deadline to have it done?
No.
He's given them a schedule, he's gonna do
I've seen the schedule, but FERC hasn't given the deadline.
Not,
that-
when I talked to the FERC engineer, they told me that they were not putting a time schedule, they were listening to the time schedule given to them.
Okay.
That depends on which FERC engineer you ask, because I asked that engineer's boss, and he said that we're tired of waiting for this project to be done, we want it done on the current schedule. What concerns me is that we are not getting a consistent answer to the question of what FERC is requiring in the way of a schedule, and we need
And
to
I think
understand
that's
that.
one of the biggest things with this meeting. I mean, you hear a lot of second, third, concerns, but the main concern of this meeting is to be 100% aware and assured that financing to take the dam from start to finish is in place. Now, all these other questions are secondary and less of a concern than the financing. I don't even want to talk about where the financing is coming from. We want to know that it's there, the construction starts, the construction timeline is met, and we don't run into one of these crisis situations, and we don't run into hostage situations. All this afterwards can be dealt with in a more timely and at least a more hopefully reasonable manner if we know the money is in place to do the work.
That being said, you're 100% right. I can't believe FERC, as a government agent, says, you've got to do this to a person, Lee Mueller or anybody else, you've got to do this to this dam, and the time frame has been set and the drawings have been set. They both agreed on what they're going to do right now. It's set. This is a time frame. And I can't believe a government agency will lay this on a township or a county or anything else without stepping in and saying, we're going to make sure that he's got the money before he destroys our livelihood. I just can't believe that they wouldn't do that,
Mueller told me that they knew they had to do this when they purchased the dam.
This is true.
Yeah,
He also was told at that time that consumers would step up and pay him more for his electricity, which actually Beaverton gets a lot more money for their electricity.
That's nobody's fault but his own.
That's a-
But what I'm
It's not his
saying
own.
is,
The consumers didn't step up to the ballpark neither and pay, and you can't make consumers do anything, so.
Larry, I can tell you, I've done the math, even if consumers did step up and pay, that doesn't create enough money
No,
to
it
do this
does
work.
not. No, it does not.
I've got something, Justin Eastman, Hay Township Supervisor. FERC, standing for obviously Energy Regulatory Commission. Only when someone is generating electricity is FERC going to be involved and have those type of regulations, if I understand it. I think that from my point of view on this, FERC is being FERC, and they have these regulations, and they may or may not have said it to the Boise Hydro folks in that way. But it seems to me that what we should be looking at here more so is the citizens that we're representing. And so that they can get from us the results of these meetings and say what's going to happen. And you may not have time to explain the whole thing out, or there may not be proper literature or something, and all of a sudden they're hearing, they're gonna draw the lake down, and I spent $1 million on my place, or whatever it is, or we're not gonna have a lake to go to. We've gotta come up with tax money. They're being bent over a barrel, and the regulations that are in place aren't working, I think is what we have here in my point of view.
Dave, would you comment on the formation of this dam study group and how information is going to be gathered and published?
Sure. There's a group of citizens who have property owners around Wixom Lake. Approximately 2 weeks ago, that group had its first meeting. The objective of that group is to drive out the truth about this entire situation. What's truly required now? What are the options? For doing the work, for meeting requirements? What are other options for dealing with the spillway capacity issues at the lake? What are options that don't require modifying the spillway capacity? We've talked about some of those today. But the idea, and then if funding is an issue, what are the options for funding? What we're trying to do is gather facts and present these to the public who live around the lake through auspices of the Wixom Lake Association website. We're looking for them to charter our organization, formally charter it, and for us to be their formal source of vetted information to give the public, because there's a lot of misinformation flowing right now. So this group has had its first meeting. We're going to have our second meeting Tuesday next week.
Okay.
That's going to be a meeting with the dam operator. And we will be meeting every 2 weeks to try to ferret out information. Don Zackett is on that group. I'm on that group. Brian Johnson is on that group. Dick, you're on that group? There are, I believe, 9 of us altogether, 9 or 10. But the idea is to get to the core of the truth here and truly understand the options and get some of the fluff and misinformation out of the way.
So we're hoping that within a month or two, the information that is correct and accurate about this project will be viewable on the Wixom Lake Association website. And we are in the process of getting that to happen. So it's going to take a bit of time before this information is current and available to the public. But if people have questions about this, you might refer them there. There is some information out there already, although it's not on a dam study group page.
But Ryan, for example, the question I asked about being able to more fully explore options with FERC on license surrender, that's part of our process of understanding the truth here and what the options would be.
Okay. And as you guys go forward with any additional questions that you may have, let me know,
Okay.
or if they get bogged down and we're not getting an answer from FERC, we're happy to help you in that process.
Okay, thank you.
As we go forward, and in the meantime, we'll look into what pieces of this with FERC are administrative rule, which pieces have been legislation that have been passed into public law. And if there's, then what the opportunities would be to maybe change or tweak any of those.
We want to understand the degrees of freedom here, because right now we don't.
Right.
And that's probably hurting our thinking.
The first thing we do need to understand is whether FERC can require a bond to be posted by the licensee before permission is granted to start this project. That is crucial for the reasons that several people discussed. And if not FERC, what about the Michigan DEQ or the DNR?
Can you, to that point, and Joel and I can work on this in Lansing as well, but are you, in your discussions, clear in terms of roles, what the DEQ's role, what the DNR's role is? Because both agencies are being mentioned in our discussion, and there's probably a demarcation as to
There is, and I don't fully understand what it is.
We can research that and try and get a better understanding of that too.
I do have contact names.
Okay.
And,
Before we move forward, I'm sorry, what is the web address for, was it Wixom Lake Association?
Wixom Lake Association
.com.
.org.
Okay.
All one word, Wixom Lake Association .org.
Thank you.
The good news from a state standpoint is the person, Dan Wine, who oversees the DEQ, also has responsibilities for the DNR and ag within his, so if we can kind of work with him, maybe we can get some better answers and see what on the state level we can do to.
My guess is it's time to look into a creative solution.
Yeah.
And the inquiries that I make don't necessarily motivate people to do that.
Yeah.
Ryan, another question. I've read back through 10 years worth of documentation that FERC posts in their electronic library online. Mm-hmm. And my experience reading through that is it's like listening to half of a telephone conversation. In any given issue, there's an original letter or a response that is published as public information, so I can read the text of that. And the other half of the conversation is typically published as critical energy infrastructure information, which I cannot view. And so that's hurting my ability to understand some of the background behind this, the situation that we're in, and what some of the options may be. I understand why FERC labels some information as critical energy infrastructure. If it were released to the general public, it could be used by terrorists to sabotage dam operations, and I believe that's true for some of what's being discussed. But nonetheless, that information is available to the dam owner for good reason. And that information can be released to other people when the need arises. For example, if somebody's the current plans for how the dam would be modified are critical energy infrastructure information. But they have to be available to people who are going to bid on projects to repair the dams. So they are available to other individuals. Is it possible for a study group to get access to that information on a more general basis than we do now, where we have to file a formal information request, either with the dam owner or with FERC or a general FOIA request? Is it possible for us to get more general access to those documents so that we can be as informed as the other people involved in this at FERC and at the dam ownership?
First, let me find out for you.
Yes.
But second, when you say generally get the information, are you talking
I would like to
specifically
have password
about
access to the CEII documents specific to
just to Wixom?
this, well, I think Wixom, Sanford, Smallwood, the dams on the system, because they seem to be treated as a group. So I could give you the specific project numbers if you want to, but you probably know what they are.
I think I've got them all.
And that would be intended for a limited group of people who would probably have to sign a confidentiality agreement.
Yeah,
I spent years dealing with confidentiality agreements. I understand how to behave with one.
okay. Yeah, let me find out if there's something we can do with short of, freedom of information request or anything else to make it a little bit more convenient at least.
I understand I can go to the dam owner and he can choose to show me the documents, but I prefer not to work through that filter. You understand me?
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
Is there anything else?
I'd like to just thank everybody for coming, and I know it takes time on everybody's schedule, but this is really important.
It's very important. I think, the overarching issue here is that we don't want the lake to go away. I mean, people who live there have made an investment. The communities around the lake count on that, and we want to be as helpful as we can in this process. So, we're happy to do that, and that's why I'm here. And, I expect that we'll be in communication quite a bit about this.
Well, I think that the study group probably agrees on something similar to that statement, and that is the study group would like to help minimize disruptions to the recreational activities and on the lake that might result from this spillway up there. I don't think anyone believes the lake is going to go away. So that, I don't believe that to be a realistic.
I can give you the worst case scenario is the Mueller, because he got away with that down in Sanford, believes if he can get that lake down and knock that spillway out, that people are gonna give him the money. And I've talked to an attorney, you can't have a special assessment district and take tax money and hand it over to a private company. Now the lake's down, it can't go back up. Now we're in court figuring out what to do over the space of a couple of years. And you think that the county has budget problems now in these schools? Wait till all these property values drop off on Wixom and I mean, this is a serious thing. And the one thing that'll stop it is the mechanism that they can't lower it until they show us they got the money. And to me, that should not be that hard to do. And if it is that hard to do, we need to make a bunch of changes.
Right, and let me find out, where those, if those rules are there, that they can't do that, let me find out where they came from.
Make one.
Is it administrative rule?
I mean, that's what the legislature does, isn't it? Is make laws.
We do, and, I think we've seen over the past few years, you can pass a lot of things in one chamber, but it doesn't mean it's gonna go anywhere on the other side. So, you know, we wanna make sure that we're working with the other side too, you know, if that's what the case is, so.
I don't think this is a Democrat-Republican issue at all. This is a
Common
public
sense.
protection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really in your office. When it gets down to common sense and stuff, I mean, that's what a lot of people around here are dealing with. The likelihood of this 10,000-year flood is, the reality is, we could have a tsunami on either the east or the west coast a lot quicker, a lot easier. We're not talking about stuff like that. You know, we're talking about charging little communities huge amounts of money and you know, it's just out of control. This whole government is out of control.
Yeah, the 10,000-year flood to me seems like a flood of biblical proportions.
We were making the Great Lakes then. We were still carving the Great
There were
Lakes.
glaciers 10,000 years
Yeah.
ago.
I mean, you know, we gotta get reality back in our lives here.
Well, let's just keep the water up for the next 2 years.
Right.
That's our government.
Worry about that later.
One question that is lingering, how should we continue communicating? I mean, we can have Carmen send out bulk emails like she's been, like we did to get you guys here. Should we, I mean, the focus group, do we want to meet here again? Do we want to meet in Billings? Where's everybody comfortable?
And that's one of the other things too, you know, as we go forward, and I'll go back and Josh has been taking notes, I've been taking notes, and I think he and I will compare those notes to, you know, go through the questions that were asked here today that we have for FERC now, you know, and get those in. But as everybody has questions, I mean, we should think about how we're gonna funnel those in. You know, and is it piecemeal? Because I know there's probably people even on Wixom Lake who aren't a part of the group and don't know that it's going on. You know, who all of a sudden may come out of the blue and have 10 or 12 more questions, and some of them may overlap, so.
I would suggest that once this dam project study group gets going, we can field questions from the public and answer whatever we know, have answers
Okay.
for, through the Wixom Lake Association.
Okay.
Yep, and then we can offer to forward those questions to the right people if we don't have answers.
Whether that's us for FERC or Joel and Sean for DEQ, DNS, is everybody okay with that?
And public meetings, you
Kind of
know,
going
the
that route.
townships themselves can post public meetings if they come up.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, they could post just a statement saying, go to the Wixom Lake organization, or, you know, specify it, even maybe a few names or phone numbers, but by the same token, I think the one site, probably like we said, within a few months, hopefully we can have a lot of straightforward and realistic answers there.
Right, and I just don't want there to be hiccups in communication here where, you know, one person's getting this information, you know, because, you know, we all want to be on the same page and have the same information.
Well, that's why we wanted
The
to
tips
put
of our
together a group of
fingertips, right.
citizens from the lake to study this, so that we wouldn't have several efforts going on simultaneously.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, the township guys, are you okay with that? Josh?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. So
Oh, sorry.
Just a suggestion, maybe the Congress, the House and the Senate folks could, in some kind of a regional newsletter or in the newspapers or something for our areas, post it for those folks who don't come to the township meetings and so forth, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, let me see what we can do with that.
Josh, I heard you mention focus group.
yeah,
Do you view this meeting as sort of a governmental focus group on?
I view it as us getting together and trying to fix a wrong, but I don't know. We typically do, you know, what I don't really want us to get into is a bunch more meetings for Terry and I and our commissioners right now, honestly, because it's really, it's you guys. We can help, you know, orchestrate this, and we certainly can do this again here if you guys want to. But it's not our specialty for one. You know, Terry and I are here only based on it's our district.
Correct. I mean, there's no doubt that the county wants to be a part of this. We'll do what we can. But it really is not a county project.
The only reason why I ask is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes it appears that questions that are initiated through the county government directed towards other governmental officials may get prompter results than if they come out of our study group. I mean, how would you all like to be communicated with?
From our perspective, we respond to everybody.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, whether it's coming from Josh and the county commission, or it's coming from the study group, I mean, it's gonna be going directly to the same person in our office. You know, who's gonna be working on the issue, which will probably be myself and maybe one other gentleman who handles, some of our energy issues.
I want to make it clear, it's not that I'm trying not to get out of work. I'm trying to figure out where the bulk of the communication is probably going to stem from, and I think it's probably your focus group. And so if we get correct questions, what I think we should do is you guys get us a contact, email Carmen, that contact for the focus group, so if we get questions we don't know, we can get a hold of somebody. And then if you guys want to meet here again, only because it's easier for you, absolutely, we'll make sure that we get the courthouse open or whatever, and we can meet here again. And then if you guys want to call another meeting and have more people here up the river, we can do that here. Because there's probably more room, although Billings is pretty large too, so.
Yeah, we can have 100 people in that one.
So whatever you guys want to do.
Whatever you need it, sir.
And I think it's just as easy to work with if you guys are gonna generate most of the questions through the study group, you know, instead of Josh sending them off kind of secondhand, you know, especially if there's a quick one that comes up and somebody's gonna make a phone call, then it's, you know, not getting to one of the legislative offices, you know,
Right.
second or third hand and losing something, so I think maybe that is better to get that direct communication. Almost if you guys are gonna generate most of the questions, you know, maybe to funnel that through.
How much more information do you guys need? I mean, the people representing the government. Have another meeting to
I'm
hear
not-
what?
I'm not asking for more information, I'm saying as questions come up, where is that going to come from?
I mean, the
That's
question,
all I've
the
asked.
answer I want is yes or no. We gotta stop or we can't. I mean,
Well,
I just
we've got two questions that could potentially answer the issue about can FERC require a bond?
yeah, I mean.
Can we get an answer? Do you think we can have an answer to that in 2
Or
weeks?
could the state government or somebody else
Federal
step in?
bureaucracy,
Yeah.
we can try. We'll
I
do
mean,
our best to get you an answer
once
on it.
again-
You know, and when I get back to them, I'll get a hold of them and
Okay.
see what we can find out.
That's the key question at this point, is to be 100% sure that financing is in place before this work starts. And if not, then we need to obviously make a lot of other corrections or something, whether it be, like you say, the surrender of the license, the turning the lake into an impoundment rather than a power producer. There's a lot of steps after that, but the first step
And
is
there's
financing.
there's a lot of information out there to digest, and you know, we want to make sure we're boiling that down in the right way so you guys can make those decisions.
And we'll have the focus group communicate back what their progress is to the Board of Commissioners, and then at some point, when you guys get enough information and we find out enough from FERC, we can schedule another meeting without a problem, whether it's at Billings or here, or whatever you guys want to do. Do we have a time frame for when we want, or when can you get information? Do you need a deadline?
I'll get it in today to FERC, and we'll get them started on the process. You know, the general bureaucratic timeframe is, you know, usually within 30 days. You know, I'll see what I can do and see if we can't get it in a couple weeks. At least, even if it's not, you know, I've got 9 identified here. You know, once Josh and I put our notes together, there may be a couple more, and I may be able to put a couple together, but, you know, even if it's getting answers to some of those things.
Give them high priority on the first one about the bond. I've asked that question 2 weeks ago to the deputy director in DC, and I believe Bill asked it in January. So if you could just touch base and remind them that this is a question that's come up in the past,
Yep.
and we really need an answer.
And I've got that one marked as the top priority, so, you know, and if you'd like, I mean, I can send that by itself and see what we can get. If you want to hold on the other ones and maybe try and shove that one out in 2 weeks and then follow up with the rest. I mean,
2 communications would be good, have them expedite the first one.
yep, absolutely, okay. Yep, happy to do that.
And we will I can probably just photocopy these minutes for you, so you have something
Yeah,
to work
yeah,
off of.
I can take that.
I'll have
down
Carmen
there.
type them up the first of the week, and we'll email them out to all you guys. And if you see corrections that you want made because of my chicken scratch and me trying to keep up, just let me know, let Carmen know, and we'll get those corrected.
You really decided, I was thinking about them when you signed up, and there was a sign up.
Yeah, I think we can just send them to the townships specifically. We mostly have township residents or supervisors and board members here, so that should grab everybody. Are there any other questions? Again, if, yes.
Josh, I just had one quick thing for Mr. Molnar and Mr. Johnson and Ryan too, that, you know, part of this lake, a very small part of it, is in Midland County too. So we've got multi jurisdictions there amongst the townships.
That's what my piece is.
So just keep that in mind. So.
Dave is representing Midland County, or one of the two representatives
Okay.
on the study team.
Well, I'm talking county government, you know, in case they would be interested in it, or they need to be contacted. So the majority of it is in Gladwin County, but there is some Midland County. So.
And Kevin Cotter's quite aware of what's going on because of having been involved a little bit with Sanford.
Right. They may have some valuable information.
Yeah, I'll try to let him know what we're doing here too.
Yeah, and I think the people in Sanford can be a resource too, you know, who have dealt with it, even if it was.
There's a lot of questions starting to come in from Secord also, because there's dam repairs up there, and I know there's a lot of concern up there. Plus all these dams being tied together, I don't know if Secord's been
He
represented
called me,
here,
he was
but
unable to get out of his subdivision this morning. And he
all
really
I'm saying
wanted
is there, I know there is concerns
Sure.
up there along the same lines. I don't know if they're not exact because they're not required to do the spillways like this, but I know there are major concerns up there.
Yeah.
Once again, Lee's comments of, you know, what he may or may not do, and, you know, they're just, and one of the things we're doing as a group is trying to work with Lee and, you know, don't make these comments that create grief amongst the community and, you know, basically enemies. You know, we're trying to somewhat soften that, but by the same token, when statements come out from Lee, a lot of times we either have no forward notice or even no knowledge of what statement's gonna come out.
As a result of that, I think that article in the Midland paper, Larry Woodard, who was the president of the Lake Association, received 32 phone calls that afternoon before he finally kind of unplugged
I'm
his
not
phone.
surprised. I read it. Dave's actually in Washington this week. You know, they have votes this week, but when I saw it, I made sure that he saw it as well. I shot him an email.
So it's
that he
created
saw
a
it,
lot
because I know.
of problems.
Yeah.
One other request, and that is, would you request the answers to these questions in writing?
Always.
Yes, please.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want that documentation for us, for you.
Yes.
You know, and to be able to go back and if something changes in the future, say, well, this is what you told us in writing. And to have that.
And would we need to request special permission to list the content of that statement on this website? I mean, do people, would you view it as public information?
I would view these as us making a request from a constituent who's having an issue with a federal agency, as we do, you know, all across government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and however that constituent chooses to, you know, disseminate that and publish that is their prerogative.
So
So, you know, if you've got a...
The response could be published.
I don't see why not. If you've got a person who's having an issue with the VA hospital and